Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today you find me with a new engine for the fleet. So we'll just give it a little bit of an overview, maybe a little bit of a small review on it, nothing like Sam's Trains or anything like that. There's people out there that are doing better than me. But we'll just have a quick little overview of this engine and we'll see what I think. Okay, so inside the box, it's moved over to the new block of ice style packaging. The boxes in itself is shorter. I do in fact already have an L1, as many people familiar with the channel will know. This is the older release, around 2011-2012. This model is essentially that one in a new box. It's as the Airfix modelers would claim, it's a rebox, not a retool. One thing that is slightly odd, stroke interesting for me, is if you have a look here on the box, it's got a set of ladders, which I call them rail ladders rather than footsteps, but it shows it's got that. But in the actual packet of parts, not sure if you can see it, I've got the same footsteps, which is actually on my other L1. So it might be a case of reaching out to Hornby, taking a photo of the box and explaining it, and saying that, look, I've got the wrong steps. That, or I might just try and make some up out of wire. So, because for the price I paid for this engine, bearing in mind it's brand spanking new, I'm not overly fussed about that, and we'll get into why I'm not too worried when we get on to how much I paid in the overall price section of it. So what do we get in the box? Obviously, you get your set of instructions, and you get your goodie bag. You might have noticed already as well, in the goodie bag here, your couplings, your tension locks are in the goodie bag. And as you can see here, a set of number 18 KDs. Now they are quite close coupling KDs. They are probably best to use with third radius and above if you're using set track. I'm not, I'm using flexi track and radius gauges to plan my track, so I know I can get away with it because it's been tried and tested already. So back to this engine. In the box we get our bit of gumph and our packet of goodies, and of course, without further ado, we get our engine. Obviously, a slight disclaimer, I've already opened the box to inspect the loco and also to make sure that it runs, and I've already ran it in, so there's no point really making this video if it isn't going to run. As I said, this isn't really a review, it's more of an overview of the engine. Okay, so I'll just move this controller out of the way and we'll have a little bit of a look, and we'll bring in the other one for comparisons for detailed differences. Okay, so we have the two of them together now, the original and the new rebox. So what differences are there between the two? Basically, in regards to the engine, there isn't a lot of differences. It's very much the L1 as a basic concept is the same engine. They are the same engine underneath. But there are a few minor detail differences between the two, which might be worth pointing out to you guys. First and foremost, we will start with the numbers. Here on 777-2, we have 8-inch numbers, whereas over here on 7735 we have 10-inch numbers. One big glaring difference: the new one has a Westinghouse air pump, whereas the old one doesn't. So this would have been for the air brake stock, because this locomotive is shedded at 30A, which is Stratford, and this one was 34E, which is Needston. So in and around the London area. So, and that's what their main bread and butter work was. Local passenger, suburban passenger work, as well as short hop goods trains. But other than that, there isn't really too many detailed differences. I mean, the L1s were pretty standard. So we'll get on to a little bit about the prototype. We'll talk a little bit about them, and then we'll move on to some running shots and a close and a bit of a conclusion really for this video. So I hope you enjoy it, what we've had so far, and we'll see you in the next section. Okay, so we're back with the new model now. Tucked away over there is the other one. The prototype of these locomotives, it's a bit of a funny story about them. They were expected to hold quite a lot of promise and potential. As previously mentioned, their intended work was local services, suburban work, and short hop goods trains. So they were expected to perform quite admirably in these roles. But unfortunately, they didn't live up to their potential, despite the fact that they boasted a perfect for mixed traffic 5'2" drivers with a 20-inch cylinder and a 26-inch stroke on these, and they came in at 91 tons with a boiler pressure of 225 psi. They were classed as 4MT, so one step below Edward Thompson's famous B1s. But unlike the B1s, that there was 10 of them in service, came in during the war, and they could really iron out the problems with the first 10. When these came out, the prototype in 1945, the number 9000, it didn't live up to expectations, despite many attempts to remedy it. And in 1947 to 1950, the other 99 of the 100-strong class came into online. This particular one, the prototype 67735, she entered service the 5th of November 1948, fireworks night, as they all say. And she plied her trade quite happily up until the 16th of September 1962, and she ended her days at Doncaster Works. As mentioned, these locomotives didn't really live up to expectations, and dependent on who you listen to and who you speak to and what you read about these locomotives, they could have benefited with parts being cast as opposed to fabricated. Which parts these are, I'm not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head. I would have to do more research on that. But it's believed stuff like axle boxes and whatever were fabricated as opposed to cast, where on other locomotives they were cast as opposed to fabricated. And it seems to think that those parts being cast would actually have improved these locos a fair way, and might have helped reduce the number of failures they had. But other than that, the liveries these locomotives would have carried would have been very late Eleanor apple green, lined apple green, the transitional British Railways apple green livery, or like this engine, straight into British Railways black, initially with British Railways embossed on the tank or with nothing on there, then gaining the early crest before finishing their days again in lined black but with the late crest on there. These locomotives generally applied their trade in and around the London areas, so whether it be from Stratford, like this engine, Needston, some made their way over to the Great Central and to work out of Marylebone, some worked out of King's Cross on the ex-Great Northern. They were quite widespread locomotives really, particularly come the end of their life. Again, this one ended its days at Doncaster. Whether it was based at Doncaster Shed, I'm not entirely sure. I haven't got the particular Yeadens register on these, so I am lacking in a few facts that hopefully the acquisition of that particular book would help me going forward, particularly as I might pick up a couple more of these, because being a model that was formerly the Great Central, I've now moved over to the Great Northern to have a bit of a play, as you might be keeping up with in the Woodford Vale series. Layout is progressing nicely. You'll see a bit more next month in the next quarterly update. So on to the model, its features. Sam's Trains will be very happy to know that it has sprung buffers. Overall, for a 14-year-old tooling, it actually holds up pretty well. You know, I mean, for instance, if I pull this locomotive here, apologise for it not being on the track perfectly, but this is one of the new Sonic models locomotives of 2023, 2024, I can't remember, maybe a little bit earlier than that, but this is their new A5 in 00 gauge, which is about to enter its second run. A much younger tooling than this loco, and you know, it's holding its own quite happily. And I find that particularly with like the Hornby L1s, the K1s, the B1s and the O1s, particularly the O1s and the K1s, some of the best running Hornby models that they've ever produced. And I find that's becoming more and more of a thing with Hornby. Their locos are getting much better. I would show this compared to the A22, but the A22 is too far away for me to get. But this model is holding its own, which is why now it brings us on to the sensitive topic of pricing. Let's not beat around the bush here. There's only one reason why I bought this engine, and that's because I managed to get it cheap. And the only way I managed to get it cheap was through two things. First and foremost, the Black Friday sale. Hornby's announced it, they've got loads of stuff on sale. Get on their site, have a look. If you see something you like, pick up a bargain. The original retail price for these is £199. Now for a 14-year-old tooling, I can't justify that. Cannot justify it at all. And I'm surprised Hornby can, in all fairness, because all they've done really is change the packaging. As mentioned earlier, this is the split polystyrene packaging, and that's the older box. That's the new style packaging. The model itself is virtually identical to that. There is a little bit more impressive work around the windows. The cab, back of the cab windows on that one is a lot more open. This one's a bit more sealed off. Again, could be a detail difference between the two engines and where they worked and how they were built at the time. But overall, that's the only difference. Mechanically, it is the same. The goodie bag in the box is the same. Like I mentioned earlier, in regards to the detail holding up against a lot more modern locomotives, I am for that statement. I will bear in mind that I'm not holding it up against people like Rapido or Accurascale, mainly because I've only had one brief encounter with a Rapido locomotive, and that was a little Hornby J70 I had yonks ago, which I only had for a few weeks before selling it on again. So, you know, I'm going to be honest with you there, and I'm going to hold station on, you know, I'm comparing it to present day Hornby, present day Bachmann, and to an extent Dapol as well. Locomotives that I've got experience with. You know, even up against Hornby's new 9F. This looks bloody brilliant. But again, maybe it could benefited with having a bit more die-cast, maybe some die-cast on the running plate, which it hasn't got. But again, the chassis is plenty enough for it. It's only going to be pulling about 5 or 6 coaches at most. And with my layout having relatively gentle curves, bar one area that's soon to be reworked, once I've got the up fast going so I can still run trains and play, you know, there's not a lot of rolling resistance on this layout. But can I recommend one of these engines? If you're to get them at the right price, the Hornby black sale price for these locomotives is £100. Now that is more along the lines of what I would have expected them to have charged for this to begin with. If you consider the fact that the tooling's been around for a while now, the initial few batches of it would have paid for that tooling back. So there's no need for it to be nearly a £200 model. £120 at most is a fair price for this, and would probably go a long way for them in boosting their public impression a little bit more, if that's a fair statement to say. You know, their customer service, I've had no problems with it and whatever. I'm not bashing Hornby at all. I just think nearly £200 for this is taking the Michael a little bit. So I've told you the Black Friday price, £100. When I tell you I had the bargain of a century, in my opinion, I paid £23 and something pence for this engine. And again, that is using a little bit of my noodle and taking advantage of this Black Friday sale. I had £76 something pence worth of points available to me, and I used that to get this engine. So I took I took over 3/4 of the price off just by using my reward points. And if there's ever a reason for me to implore people to sign up to these things with Hornby or whoever, or if your local retailer does a reward point system, it does come back and benefit you at some point. Okay, it might take you some time to get there, but they'll come in handy at some point. And that's the only reason why I've treated myself to a brand new engine, because times are tough at the minute for everyone. Everyone's feeling the squeeze financially. Doesn't matter where in the world you are, it's just not a particularly comfortable time at the minute financially for anyone. So when I was able to capitalise on that deal with the ability to use my points in that sale, I snatched it up. Now on eBay you can get the old version of these anywhere from 40 for a spares and repairs one, and you can fix it up, all the way up to £150 for a DCC sound weathered one. And yeah, if I grab it again, this one here, being around 10 to 14 years old, compared it to this one here, it runs just as well, it looks just as good. It's just a different box. So as a locomotive, I can recommend these. At the moment with the Black Friday sale, I would really recommend getting one of them, because you've got the benefit of the warranty for a year. But if you don't want to spend that and get one of these off of eBay or at a local show, go for it. So that is basically my overview of one of these locomotives. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope to see you again in the next video, which will be a quarterly update as opposed to what's going on in the shed and what's going on overall with the channel. And then I will see you in the next video. So thank you very much for watching, and goodbye. To close this video off, I'm going to chuck these couplings in, and we'll get some running shots of her doing a few various tasks along the layout. See you in the next one.